Hello, we are still gaming. Just recently I've been playing Operation Theseus. This has been released by Vuca Simulations. In fact, it was my first Vuca title that I've purchased. It's actually essentially a remake of the original Triumphant Fox, which somewhere I've got that as well. This was done by Moments in History, 94, so what's that, 30 years ago. I've never played it. It sat on the shelf. Thought about selling it a few times, decided not to, but for whatever reason it never got any table time. So I thought I'd have a go at the new one by Vuca. It's the same game essentially, but I would say that the rules in the new release are just much easier to digest. I found the original, which is I guess the reason why it spent so long on the shelf and not on the table, just quite tough to get through. They've been reduced in length. They're now 26 rather than about 40 pages in length. Lots of nice colour examples. So worth a go. So I'm actually playing the middle scenario. There's just three. There's fewer scenarios. I guess you could probably transport some of the scenarios from the early game to Theseus if you were so inclined. But it comes with three, which is an introductory scenario on the Battle of Bir Hakeim. Then there's a midweight scenario, which is 4 turns, which is the one I'm having a go at, and then there's a full 8-turn. I suppose you could call it a campaign game, if you want a bit more. So some of the changes, I mean, all the counters, for what I can see, are pretty much a direct copy of what went before. The combat system has been slightly modified in that they've introduced the system that was used in a previous title called Piercing the Reich. I think it was the same designer, Dirk Blennerman. So Dirk Blennerman did Piercing the Reich, Triumphant Fox. I think he's been yes, he's still listed as the designer for this. So in Piercing the Reich, which has also been redone as a game called Crossing the Line, also by Vuca, they have a chit draw to determine the overall strength, depending whether a unit is disrupted or in improved positions, and that's just a combat multiplier, which introduces a bit of variability, saves people trying to factor count to get the next column, all that good stuff, and that's now being used in this one, in Theseus, which wasn't in Triumphant Fox. And I think initially I thought, oh, that's going to be a bit of a drag. It's going to extend the combat resolution part of the game, but actually in practice it's really pretty seamless. You just draw a chit for each side. Gives you a multiplier dependent on your effectiveness, and you get effectively a column shift, a bit like the surprise roll in OCS. I don't know if you've ever tried that. So that works fine. As I say, I found the rulebook easier in this one. It's definitely shorter, but some of the things don't quite seem to hang together. And by that I mean in the old game, and bear in mind all the counters look the same on both sides in this one. In the old game there was a penalty for being disrupted which affected your tank points and your anti-tank points. In that, I think if you were half strength and you are disrupted, then you've got half of your tank or anti-tank value. I've checked in this rulebook, and I don't think that's the case anymore. I think you always use your nominal tank or anti-tank value independent of the status of the unit, whether you're half strength, whether you're disrupted, it doesn't matter. So it begs the question why, for example, do the 88 units on the Axis side have an AT value of 8, because the anti-tank effects can only ever negate the tank points. The highest Allied tank point unit is 6, so there's actually no point in having the AT value of the 88 being greater than 6, because it can only ever reduce it down to 0. Now of course, with the old game, if the AT values, or if the 88s were disrupted and half strength, then the effective AT value would be 4 and not 8. So it makes some sense to have a value greater than the 6 top value of the Allied tank points. So that just seems as though they've changed the rules in that respect and haven't really looked at the consequences of what that means to some of the values on the units, unless I've missed something, which I might have done, but I've read and read. And that's the only other thing I would add, is that I think the quality of the game is excellent. I mean, it's a mounted board, the counters are great, a bit bigger than half inch. I think they're 15mm counters, so my sort of preferred size of counters. They're nice and clean, they pop out nicely, but I find that it's difficult to get questions answered from Vuca. I mean, I've posted a few questions on Board Game Geek and Concept World, and some of the players have answered some of them. Very grateful for that. I don't necessarily agree with all the answers. They kind of refer to a rule, but it's not quite quoted correctly. I think one of the chaps thought that you actually combined all of the tank points in an attack to give you your total tank point value, which I guess would then mean that the 88s could use their 880 value in defence if you had 2 Allied tanks together. But the rules quite specifically say you choose a unit and you use that unit's tank point, and it's the one with the highest strength that gets used. So it's the highest strength, not adding them together. So I wrote to Vuca trying to get some answers, and they got back within a few days and said, we're going to pass it on to Dirk, the designer. That was about a week ago. Still heard nothing. So yeah, it's sort of, I think other games would potentially get a bit more presence from the company on the main platforms to answer some questions, but we'll see. Hopefully we'll get them answered. So yeah, quality second to none. Very nice. Replayability, don't know. I think you're probably going to see a similar flow of forces in whatever you do. I think the Axis have pretty much got to take Bir Hakeem to open up the supply route to the interior. The other flank, which is mined and defended by the Allies, the Italians can make some progress, but you're looking at really the flanking run by the 4 main formations: 21st, 15th Panzer, 90th Light and Ariete. So yes, there's going to be variability because of the action points you get when you roll the dice. It's a straight D10. That can become a bit frustrating. A series of 1s and 2s, as the Germans early, can really hamper your progress. In the Lap of the Gods there is a variant which I've downloaded, which is a sort of 2d6 system for giving you action points, so that's going to give a better distribution. Those extreme results are going to be less frequent, so that's a possibility. Still, I think the jury's a bit out on that. I like sort of some of the big swings are nice, but when they happen a bit too often, it can get a bit demoralising. So yeah, first impressions are pretty good. I would like to get these few little questions answered. One of the questions was, can you create an improved position in an enemy minefield? Now, the rules say that minefields know no friends, and they affect both sides equally. So, i.e., when you look at the combat results table, you choose the column that says minefield. Doesn't matter whether you're in an enemy minefield or friendly minefield. It says if you're in a friendly minefield, you're automatically in an improved position, so there's no point in trying to dig in. The question is, can you dig in an enemy minefield? It seems a bit weird that you can essentially fortify your position whilst trying to make your way through an enemy minefield. I'm not sure. It just feels a bit weird. Don't think it's disallowed, so maybe it just represents a bit more caution, a bit more dispersion of troops when you're in the enemy minefield. Don't know. Would like to get an answer to that one as well. So that's it. I'll just show you the map. I suspect you've seen graphics of the game. I just show you where I am on my game. I'm just getting into turn 4, the last turn of the scenario. I think the Axis are going to run out of time. They're almost running out of units to attack. Essentially, 1st Armoured and 7th Armoured are kind of shot to pieces, really. They've just captured Knightsbridge. They're pushing on El Adem, but they may end up with a marginal defeat as the Axis, just because they're not going to get quite far enough. Playing on to the full 8 turns, I wonder what would be left of the Allied forces. Maybe I was a bit too aggressive with them, but let's have a look at the map and you'll be able to see the position. Okay, we'll start in the top west part of the map. You can see there's been a little bit of progress by the Italians. They've managed to breach a few mine hexes, putting a bit of pressure down this flank, because in fact the British had to move elements of this division. I guess the 150th, so maybe it's the 50th division across into Knightsbridge to help defend here, which leaves their other guys out of command. There's strict supply rules for, that's a leg based HQ. It's got to be on or adjacent to a track or a road, so that means it's got to be over here, so the command range of 5 is insufficient to reach their other units. But the feeling was that it's going to take the Italians long enough to fight their way through here anyway, so in this scenario that seems to work. Probably wouldn't try that with a longer scenario. So Bir Hakeim is fully cleared and breached, and that opened up a second supply route down here, which was useful. So now the Germans can base their HQs within their command range of this hex, which has allowed them to go through Knightsbridge. There are remnants of the 7th Armoured Division, the Desert Rats, here, who are trying to scream with their armoured cars. LADEM, which is worth a couple of VPs, and a Chroma is the other potential VP, which they may get to because there's really nothing of any great value here, and there's still plenty of activations. Looking at the German pool, I mean 90th Light, still good at full 7. The Schwerpunkt is with 15th Panzer as well. So 15th Panzer, they have taken some losses. They've lost one of their Panzer battalions, but their losses are quite low compared to the British losses. This was the alternative activation. So you can see that you're much more likely to get 5 or 6 activations when you're on 7, whereas it's a straight D10 roll on the system as published. So that just smooths out the distribution a bit. Not too sure whether I would try with that or not. I just thought I'd print it out to have a look at it. But as you can see, it's a lovely game. The counters are really good. I just think this is going to be a fairly standard approach to take Bir Hakeem and sweep round the corner. I guess potentially you could go for a long run around here, but it means the supply route may not be tenable. But anyway, that's what's been happening, and I've enjoyed it.